Welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell, and Story Hour is a reading series that my co-host, Daniel Marcus, started at the beginning of a shelter-in-place order, which is still in place under an increasingly orange sky. So it's been really a nice thing for us to remain connected to one another, to readers, to writers, to everyone around through stories, just sort of gathering around a campfire, which feels a little more real than in Northern California than usual right now. So to those of you who are new to Story Hour, welcome. Those of you who have been here before, thank you for coming back. This will look very familiar to you. We have two writers. Tonight we have S.G. Browne and Sally Wiener Grotta. And we have a short PSA for a nonprofit for each of them. So if you are fortunate enough to help others during this time, please consider a donation to one or both of our featured nonprofits, Give Me Shelter Cat Rescue and the Speculative Literature Foundation. I'll be talking just fine by the end of the evening. Give Me Shelter Cat Rescue has worked tirelessly within the San Francisco community to help stop the overpopulation of abandoned and unwanted adult and senior cats. A small group of dedicated volunteers provides behavioral and medical intervention, unconditional love, and a safe haven while seeking new forever homes for our feline friends. In San Francisco, most adult cats are at risk of being euthanized, whether it is due to their age, easily treatable medical conditions, or the stress of being placed in a shelter. Give Me Shelter Cat Rescue believes that adult and senior cats, with their typically calm personalities, can make the best of family pets. Their mission is to rescue these cats and find them loving, permanent homes through fostering and active adoption strategies. You can learn more at givemesheltersf.org. The Speculative Literature Foundation is a nonprofit arts foundation modeled on the National Endowment for the Arts, but focused specifically on serving the speculative literature community. That's the kind of stuff we're reading here. SLF aims to encourage promising new writers, assist established writers, facilitate the work of quality magazines and small presses, and develop a greater public appreciation of speculative fiction. Primary projects include cash grants to writers, which are designed as gateway grants with no entry fees and an easy application process. SLF also offers a host of community resources covering a broad range of topics, such as academic resources for teachers, convention listings for fans, editorial guidelines for self-publishers, and much more at their website, speculativeliterature.org. If you are here on Zoom, please mute your mic now. Feel free to leave your camera on. It's very nice for the readers to actually see the people they're reading to. And chime in on the text if you like. If you're joining us on Facebook, thank you very much, but please understand that we do not see your messages. So our first reader tonight is S.G. Browne. S.G. Browne is the author of the novels Breathers, Fated, Lucky Bastard, Big Egos, and Less Than Hero, as well as the short story collection Shooting Monkeys in a Barrel, and the heartwarming holiday novella I Saw Zombies Eating Santa Claus. That sounds lovely. He's an ice cream connoisseur, Guinness aficionado, cat enthusiast, and a sucker for It's a Wonderful Life. You can learn more about his writing at sgbrowne.com. SG, thank you for joining us tonight. What have you prepared for us?
I have a short story that I self-published as a Kindle single on Amazon, obviously, since it's Kindle. It's called Dr. Sinister's Home for Retired Villains. And normally it's 99 cents on Amazon, but starting tomorrow, I'm running a 3-day promotion and it's free. So
feel free to drop the link in the text so that people can pick up on that. Save it for the next few days.
Sure thing.
And please go ahead and read.
All right. Moriarty sits on my right, picking into Salisbury steak, inspecting it with the tines of his fork and peering underneath it as if his lunch is booby-trapped and might explode at any moment. Moriarty has trust issues. This is disgusting, he says. A culinary abomination. They might as well just poison us and get it over with. He also tends toward the melodramatic. If you don't like what they're prepared, you don't have to eat it, I say, around a mouthful of Salisbury steak and mashed potatoes. Moriarty raises a single eyebrow and gives me a patriarchal look down his nose to let me know he doesn't approve of me talking with my mouth full. My table manners have, admittedly, taken a turn for the worse, a consequence of my long-term accommodations and lack of English propriety that would otherwise provide a sense of adequate social structure. Moriarty finds my excuses wanting and suggests that my barbaric alternate personality is to blame. He might have a point, but although I have learned to temper my expectations about the food service and to accept the substandard quality of the cuisine, Moriarty still complains. Overcooked, Moriarty says, plucking a green bean from his plate and holding the offending vegetable up for emphasis. This is unacceptable. He flings the green bean across the dining hall, hitting Captain Hook in the back of the head. Hook stands up and looks around, a scowl on his face, his gaze darting back and forth before he raises his namesake in the air and shouts, "Curse you, Peter Pan!" He's always cursing Peter Pan. Hook continues to glare around the dining hall, which teems with the lunchtime crowd. Dozens of the infamous and the nefarious stand in the food line, fill up their plates, and sit down to eat beneath the racks of fluorescent lights that flicker and buzz throughout the room, which has all the charm of a prison cafeteria. 6-foot-long industrial-grade tables with attached hard plastic blue chairs are arranged in uniform rows and bolted to the floor, as if to prevent any of the occupants of Dr. Sinister's from stealing them, while the off-white walls remain barren, save for the warning signs posted everywhere. Death rays are not allowed in the dining hall. Death rays, Moriarty says as he plays with his bread pudding. Since when did weapons make for a convincing villain? Tell me, Doc, what happened to good old-fashioned treachery? When it comes to our trade, Moriarty leans toward the snobbish. He believes the only true villains are those who use their intellect and other natural-born talents, rather than relying on technological tools to get the desired results. While I understand his point, I believe there has always been a place in our line of work for ingenuity and innovation. Not every villain has the ability to outthink his adversary. Sometimes you have to use the tools at your disposal, be that brains, brawn, death rays, or supernatural powers. Good evening, the Count says as he sits down across from Moriarty. The Count always says good evening, no matter the time of day. I used to think it was an affectation, but I've begun to wonder if it might be something more serious. Dementia is an unfortunate side effect of growing older, even if you happen to be an immortal creature of the night. It's afternoon, genius, Moriarty says. Oh, of course. The Count gives a strained smile, either out of embarrassment or because he's sizing up Moriarty's blood type. It wouldn't be the first time. Moriarty has a way of bringing out the worst in people. Before the Count has the opportunity to take a bite of his lunch, Moriarty points across the dining hall. Hey, isn't that Van Helsing? The Count turns to look with a start, his face blanching. You wouldn't think he could get any paler, but he somehow manages the trick. While the Count remains preoccupied, Moriarty grabs the bread pudding off the Count's tray and sets it on his own. My mistake, Moriarty says. It was just the Sheriff of Nottingham. The Count regards Moriarty as if considering an afternoon snack. Then he picks up his fork and looks down at his tray, an expression of confusion clouding his face. In spite of the Count's frailties, Moriarty should know better than to tease him. Even though he's not as sharp as he used to be, the Count can still hypnotize the trousers off of Svengali. When it comes to transmogrification, my abilities pale in comparison. The three of us eat our meals in relative silence, with the occasional complaint from Moriarty about the food, and the odd apology from the Count for his audible flatulence. My God, Moriarty waves a hand in front of his face. It's as if something died. The Count glares at Moriarty, who glares back. I wouldn't recommend that, I say to Moriarty. Remember what happened the last time. 2 months ago, Moriarty challenged the Count to a staring contest, only to end up stripping naked and strutting around the shuffleboard court like a rooster. When he came to, he was perched on the roof and crowing at the sunrise. Moriarty relents and breaks eye contact, looking past the Count and then rolling his eyes. Oh joy, here comes Mr. Wonderful. I follow Moriarty's gaze to find Mr. Blank walking past the other tables, headed our way. Mr. Blank is one of the newest arrivals at Dr. Sinister's, what the old-timers refer to as cubbies. And like many cubbies, Mr. Blank operates under the assumption that he's still a bear. Every time he walks into the room, he wears the expression of someone who expects to do battle, assessing potential threats, and identifying easy conquests. Being a villain, is a hard habit to break. Not everyone who ends up at Dr. Sinister's is a candidate for hip replacement surgery or on a steady diet of high blood pressure medication. Sometimes, even the best of us meet our match before we're ready to hang up our black capes or monocles. But no one wants to admit that his or her time is past, especially villains. When it comes to holding on to our glory days, we're a singularly obstinate breed, worse than child actors and high school jocks. At Mr. Blank's arrival, the Count turns and gives a courteous nod. Good evening. It's afternoon, Grandpa. Mr. Blank gestures to the sunshine pouring in through the windows. Shouldn't you be in your coffin or something? Mr. Blank suffers from an ignorance born of pop culture misinformation. Contrary to any propaganda, you may have seen the red, the Count says. Sunlight does not affect me in any adverse manner. But cut off his head and drive a stake through his heart, and you're in business, Moriarty says. The Count fixes Moriarty with another stare. Thanks for the tip. Mr. Blank gives a menacing smile and eyes each of us in turn. We avoid direct eye contact just to play it safe. Mr. Blank has the ability to look into people's eyes and steal their memories, which isn't particularly threatening in a place where more than half of the residents teeter on the precipice of Alzheimer's. That's the main reason for the signs posted everywhere, shouting orders at us about death rays and booby traps and other off-limit activities, not as a warning for residents who break the rules with malice or contempt, but more as a reminder, in case we forget. Mr. Blank nods at the open seat next to the Count. Mind if I join you? Yes, Moriarty says without hesitation, never one to add any sweetener to his bitter rejoinders. We do mind. Go find another table to pollute. What he means is that we have a vetting process to go through if you want to dine with us, I say, attempting to clarify Moriarty's antisocial behavior. Perhaps if you had a title, the Count adds. While the three of us have been something of a literary triumvirate for more than a century, we have had a handful of other infamous characters share our table over the years. Dr. No, Dr. Evil, Dr. Kananga, Judge Doom, Lord Voldemort, General Zod. We tend to be somewhat discriminating when it comes to the company we keep. Mr. Blank studied us a moment. Oh, I get it. It's like that old joke. A doctor, a professor, and a count walk into a bar. I don't believe I've heard that one, the Count says with a smile. You'd like it, Grandpa, Mr. Blank says. You're the punchline. The Count's bright smile transforms into a dark scowl. The only joke around here is you, Moriarty says. Mr. Blank points a menacing finger. I'd watch your step, Professor, or the next time we have this discussion, you won't remember your name. Ooh, the Count waves his fingers theatrically in the air. Such a threat. Mr. Blank turns his finger on the Count. That goes double for you, Grandpa. The cubby points his finger at each of us in turn as if playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo before he walks away in a huff, finally sitting down at a table with Bluebeard and Corella DeVille. What the three of them could possibly have in common, I have no idea, but they seem to hit it off and are soon laughing like old college chums. When they glance our way, Mr. Blank whispers something about, and the other two howl like hyenas. Cretins, Moriarty gestures toward the other tables. They're all nothing more than cretins. I believe they can hear you, the Count says, looking over his shoulder. Indeed, those sitting nearest to us glance our way with sneers, leers, and general expressions of iniquity. While it's true that Moriarty, the Count, and I are among the longest tenured residents at Dr. Sinister's, the influx of modern pop culture villains and antiheroes has altered the current social landscape, causing us to lose some of our long-standing stature. Reputation can only get you so far in this business. Eventually, more sophisticated and powerful villains emerge, spreading a new and improved brand of evil. And before you know it, you become obsolete, relics of the villainous past, quaint in your outdated version of treachery. Where people once quaked in their shoes at the thought of us, appalled by our immoral exploits and terrified by the very thought of our existence, we now live in a world where villains eat their victims, shoot lightning out of their fingertips, and destroy half of all life in the universe with a single snap. Criminal masterminds and alter ego sociopaths can't compete with today's crop of villains. And although his supernatural powers would seem to give the Count some added cachet in the modern world, his legacy has been diluted by parodies, adaptations, and updates that have rendered him little more than a caricature of his former monstrous self. Eventually, life passes all of us by. Once we've finished our lunch, Moriarty goes outside to take his afternoon stroll around the grounds and smoke his pipe, while the Count and I retire to the Grand Lounge, which is more plebeian than palatial. Stuffed with secondhand furniture and decorated with cheap lamps and threadbare area rugs, the Grand Lounge suffers from an identity crisis. In spite of its less than opulent decor, it's where many of the residents of Dr. Sinister's gather to plot, scheme, and play the occasional not-so-friendly game of backgammon or parcheesi. Blood has been spilled more than once over claims of cheating and telepathic mind reading. As a rule, villains tend to be sore losers. In addition to engaging in board games and cards, the residents of Dr. Sinister's often pass their time in the Grand Lounge with one of the numerous books that have been donated or left behind. There's a lot of Stephen King and Clive Barker among the paperbacks, along with classics like Frankenstein, The Turn of the Screw, and The Haunting of Hill House. You won't find any Stephanie Meyers on the shelves. If you did, chances are there would be a riot. The Count and I sit down in a couple of wingback chairs that smell of disinfectant and stale urine, incontinence strikes even the infamous, and proceed to pursue our own post-lunch activities. The Count picking up where he left off an interview with a vampire, while I open my journal and continue with my autobiography. Moriarty marks my endeavors and doesn't think anyone is interested in reading the self-indulgent ramblings of a disgraced English doctor. On more than one occasion, he's told me my ideas are trite and my writing overly florid and filled with cliches. I think he's just jealous that I found a hobby, something that makes me happy, and he's attempting to drag me down into his morass of negativity, but I'm not going to let him deter me. There's a great deal of personal experience I feel I can impart to others, not to mention a unique insight into the lives of some of the most notorious villains of literature, television, and film. Norman Bates, Emma Frost, Agent Smith, Walter White, Dr. Belloc, Annie Wilkes, the Joker, Patrick Bateman, Morgan Le Fay, Emperor Palpatine, Gordon Gekko, Randall Flagg, Bellatrix Lestrange, Ernst Blofeld, Hans Gruber, Two-Face, Harley Quinn, Milo Mindbender, the Green Goblin, and Nurse Ratched are among the villains who have passed through the doors of Dr. Sinister's at one time or another. Not to mention the various wolves, witches, and other classic villains of the Brothers Grimm variety. While they know how to enjoy a party, fairy tale villains aren't much on conversation, most of which revolves around cooking children, devouring elderly women, and terrorizing billy goats and pigs. On the other side of the Grand Lounge, the Big Bad Wolf and the Queen of Hearts sit across from one another at a scuffed oval tea table, playing a game of cards and alternating promises of disembowelment and beheadings. They do this every day after lunch, their threats escalating until one of them wins and the other lets out a scream or a roar of frustration and storms off. "I'll eat you," the Big Bad Wolf growls, baring his teeth like a promise, saliva dripping from his lips. "I'll tear you to shreds and limb from limb." "Oh, poppycock," the Queen of Hearts says with a dismissive wave of her hand. "I'll chop off your furry head before you can get so much as a nibble, you mangy, flea-infested jackal." "Do you have any kings?" "Go fish," the Big Bad Wolf shouts, spit and foam spraying from his muzzle. I write down the scene in my journal, taking notes, thankful that I don't need to get their permission to use their names and likeness since they're both in the public domain. In addition to the Big Bad Wolf and the Queen of Hearts, you'll often find Dorian Gray moping about the Grand Lounge, complaining about his portrait. Every now and then, the Wicked Witch of the West comes flying through on her broom, a handful of monkeys trailing behind her, chattering and flinging their feces at everyone. And it's not uncommon for Captain Hook and Long John Silver to spend the afternoon lounging on a couch, sharing a bottle of cheap rum and singing 15 Men on a Dead Man's Chest, before getting into an argument that eventually escalates into a drunken sword fight. As you can imagine, we don't get many visitors. Next to me, the Count lets out a contented sigh as he continues to read Interview with the Vampire, one hand holding the paperback while he absent-mindedly bites at the back of his other hand and makes soft sucking sounds. He says he does this for comfort, but I've told him I think it's something he should do in the privacy of his own room. While the Count continues to suck his own blood, Svengali and Don Juan stroll through the Grand Lounge in matching Under Armour athletic t-shirts and compression shorts like a couple of fashion models on a catwalk. They stop and flex for the evil queen, but she's too preoccupied with a magic mirror to notice them, so they pretend as if they don't notice her and continue on their way to the gym. In addition to the prison-themed dining hall and the less than grand lounge, Dr. Sinister's boasts a rundown gym with obsolete exercise equipment, a weed-infested garden that has been the cause of several outbreaks of poison ivy, and an outdoor booby trap, otherwise known as the Recreation Center, which consists of 2 ping pong tables held together by duct tape, a dilapidated shuffleboard court, and an unsupervised swimming pool. While the ping pong tables and shuffleboard court are often put to good use in spite of their condition, most of the residents tend to avoid the swimming pool after the Dr. Kananga incident, which of course resulted in management putting up another sign. "The swimming pool is not a shark pit. Also, no running or diving allowed." I win again, shouts the Queen of Hearts, laying the last of her cards on the table, which the big bad wolf immediately flips over with one of his giant paws, scattering cards across the floor as he lets out a howl of rage and storms off. Loser! Queen of Hearts yells, her finger and thumb held up to her forehead in the shape of an L, her derisive laughter filling the grand lounge. She emits a couple of triumphant clucks, then rights the table and cleans up the scattered cards to make a show of being a good sport. After tidying up, she puts on a fresh coat of blood red lipstick, straightens her petticoats and collar, then tilts her chin in the air and strolls off in the same direction as the big bad wolf. As if we all don't know where she's headed. Out of nowhere, the Phantom of the Opera appears next to me. The Phantom of the Opera is here, beside your chair. I liked him better before he became enamored with the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. What do you want? I asked, as if I didn't know. Several months ago, the Phantom convinced me to accompany him into the big bad wolf's bedroom closet to play a prank. I thought we were going to jump out at him when he opened the closet door, or wait until he went to sleep before we snuck out to frighten him, the proverbial monsters in the closet. Instead, when the Phantom cranked open the door to get a glimpse into the room, the big bad wolf was lying naked on the bed, pleasuring himself. Before I could object or scrub the image from my mind, the bedroom door opened and the Queen of Hearts snuck in, closing and locking the door behind her. Faster than you could say, I'll huff and I'll puff, the Queen of Hearts burst out of her corset and royal undergarments and climbed on top of the big bad wolf, where she rode him like a mechanical bull until he let loose with an orgasmic howl. Those are 3 minutes of my life I will never get back. Want to watch the freak show again? The Phantom asks, smiling at me with deranged glee. I think I'll pass, I say. Suit yourself. The Phantom does a theatrical wave of his black cape and disappears into the shadows. I like his cape, the Count says with a hint of envy. I return to my memoirs while the Count goes back to his book and resumes his soft, masturbatory sucking sounds. While I know he's not trying to annoy me on purpose, sometimes I just want to give in to my inner evil nature and bash his skull with a hammer. Before I can allow Mr. Hyde to come out and play, there's a commotion outside, voices shouting, along with maniacal laughter. At Dr. Sinister's, there's always maniacal laughter, so chances are it's just a false alarm. But in addition to my dissociative identity disorder, I also suffer from FOMO, the fear of missing out, and I'm not the only one. The Count and I abandon our chairs and exit the Grand Lounge through the French doors, where we find a small crowd of villains standing at the edge of the pool. Among them, Bluebeard, Lady Macbeth, Rumpelstiltskin, Norman Bates, Dorian Gray, and Pennywise the Clown, who is the source of the maniacal laughter. He's always laughing maniacally about something. When we reach the others, I stand next to Bluebeard and glance into the swimming pool, where Mr. Blank floats face down in the deep end, his arms outstretched to his sides, scattered brown leaves drifting in the water around him, a ribbon of red flowing out from his neck. In a retirement home full of villains, you're bound to make an enemy or two, and Mr. Blank made more than a share of enemies in short order, so I can't say this comes as a surprise. Did anyone see what happened? I ask. Not me, Rumpelstiltskin answers, quick and high-pitched, his right index finger halfway up one of his nostrils. I witnessed nothing, Bluebeard says, giving me a look that defies me to challenge him. Dorian Gray echoes Bluebeard's denial, while Lady Macbeth and Norman Bates shake their heads in silence. Pennywise just lets out another maniacal laugh. I don't expect anyone to admit to anything. Villains don't tend to snitch on each other. It's bad form. Plus, when you live among dozens of other scoundrels, miscreants, libertines, and evildoers, it doesn't take the intellect of Lex Luthor or Hannibal Lecter to understand that tattletales possess a short lifespan. More residents show up to get an eyeful and satisfy their lust, including the big bad wolf and the Queen of Hearts, her hair disheveled and a single stocking bunched up at one ankle. The Wicked Witch of the West watches from behind one of the windows in the Grand Lounge, refusing to get anywhere near the swimming pool. What happened here? Moriarty asks over my shoulder as he joins the rubberneckers gathered around the pool. Someone killed the cubby, Rumpelstiltskin says with a hint of glee, repeating the phrase over and over like a nursery rhyme. Someone killed the cubby, someone killed the cubby. Is that so? Moriarty says, taking a puff on his pipe. Pity. The ribbon of blood continues to flow out of Mr. Blank's severed throat, twisting through the water like a scarlet snake. A few minutes later, 3 of Dr. Sinister's henchmen arrive, pushing through the crowd to the edge of the pool. All right. Nothing to see here you haven't seen before, one of them says as another readies a grappling hook to retrieve Mr. Blank's lifeless body. Everyone back inside. A chorus of complaints rises up from the crowd as everyone disperses with reluctance, the disappointment palpable. There are more than a few pouty faces. While death isn't an anomaly at Dr. Sinister's, we don't often get to experience moments such as these that allow us to remember how it felt to vanquish an adversary and stand in triumph over a fallen victim. In a way, we've all become victims, not of each other, but of our own nostalgia, wishing for the good old days when we existed in perpetual relevance. Now, all we have to nourish our souls are the memories of our villainous exploits, and the occasional dead body floating in a mixture of blood and chlorinated water. Moriarty the Count and I linger outside with a few of the others, soaking up as much of the ambiance as we can. I glance at Moriarty. Did you enjoy your afternoon walk? He takes another puff on his pipe and gives a single, almost imperceptible nod. It might just be the light, but he appears to have a twinkle in his eye. Sometimes it's the little things in life, Moriarty says as the henchmen drag Mr. Blank's body from the swimming pool. Finished.
Oh, that was a hoot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
That was fun.
That was a nice mix of belly laughs and cringe laughs.
Right.
Well, I think that was what I was hoping for, so good.
Yes, I had a feeling. That was excellent. Well, I think that we're up for a little bit of a tone change now. But it's now that we're all warmed up, it's going to be great. Sally Wiener Grotta is our next reader. Sally Wiener Grotta is an award-winning author, photographer, and speaker. Her books include The Winter Boy, a Locus Magazine 2015 recommended read, and JoJo, a Jewish Book Council Network book. Her story, One Widow's Healing, won a Health Odyssey Award from Thomas Jefferson Hospital in 2019. Her hundreds of stories, columns, and essays have appeared in scores of magazines, newspapers, and journals. Member of SFWA and the Authors Guild, Sally is a co-curator of the Galactic Philadelphia Author Reading Series and co-chair of the Authors Guild Philadelphia chapter. You can find more about her at Sally Wiener, that's WIENER, Grotta, GROTTA.com. Sally, what are you reading for us tonight?
Thank you, Laura and Daniel. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to be reading a short story, One Widow's Healing. Last year, Philadelphia's Thomas Jefferson Hospital asked writers to submit short story spec-fic inspiration for medical professionals to help them imagine and create the healthcare systems of the future, which is a cool project in itself. They called it the 2100 Health Odyssey. Specifically, we were instructed to write a positive, hopeful story set in the year 2100. My response to the story was One Widow's Healing. At the time I wrote it, I had no idea how relevant it would become in the year 2020, unfortunately. But here it is. It's called One Widow's Healing. Dr. Maria Hilari fidgeted with her avatar's gown, editing it up to the last minute, despite the rental agreement that forbade tampering with the design. Regardless what Gabrielle, Chanel's virtual saleswoman, had said, the sequins weren't right, too fussy, too many, especially for a simple nano-physician who lived almost entirely in shorts and t-shirts and rarely wore shoes. At least the avatar's hair emulated her chin-length gray frizz, and the rounded body approximated Maria's, though with more bust, longer legs, and unbent back. But it was all too frivolous just when she needed the world to take her seriously. Why did I let Gabrielle talk me out of renting white tie and tails? Maria glanced at the countdown clock. The ceremony was about to begin. Dolled up and glittery or sensible and solemn? I'm in the thick of it now. Zooming out through her desk's holographic projection, Maria tested her avatar controls one last time. Having declined a bodysuit, she wore a mesh headset gloves and slippers. She turned her head right and left, wiggled her hands, shuffled her feet, and the avatar mimicked her motions. Initially, Maria had planned to attend in person. What an adventure that would have been. Heck, she'd rarely been outside of Scranton, let alone as far as Europe. Until recently, Scranton had been enough. Gazing out her window at the winter pear trees, gazing out her window at the winter bare trees and granite hills of Nayog Park, Maria imagined she could still smell evergreen trees and river spray mixed with the taste of Doug's flesh on hers. Her mind overlaid years of memories, hand-in-hand strolls along the park's nearly deserted paths, through winter snows, spring blossoms, summer breezes, fallen leaves. On one such autumn walk, 20 years ago, a scruffy mutt, Watson, had bounded into their path and their hearts. Maria hadn't left their one-bedroom apartment in nearly 13 years, never feeling the wind or touching another creature since Watson died 2 months after Doug. Not that she was hearth-locked, just that, like most people, she'd no reason to go outside. All information, entertainment, or interactions were online. Anything she needed or wanted could be 3D'd. Physician, heal yourself, she thought. Time to re-enter the real world. But within minutes of Maria RSVPing yes to the all-expense-paid trip to Sweden, Mark Singh, Whole Life Systems Chief Communications Officer, had VidConned. Congratulations on the Nobel, Dr. Hilary. His voice had oozed sincerity, though his avatar's smile had failed to crinkle its eyes. I'll be your liaison for the ceremony and its aftermath. He proceeded to explain the intricate rules of etiquette. Who to bow to, how deeply, proper titles, when to speak, how to speak. Too many directives, too tedious to remember. I'll do my best to protect you from the crackpots that'll come out of the woodwork, but I can do nothing about the pressing crowds you'll encounter in Stockholm. I think I'll stay home, Maria had decided. Singh had readily agreed. I'll arrange for the avatar rental. Maria glanced at the pictures on either side of her large wall monitor. Well, Doug, she said to her favorite, the vid card of Watson and Doug cuddling on the sofa. I might be there only virtually, but hell, they'll have to listen to me now. A drum roll from her speakers prompted everyone in the Stockholm concert hall to stand for the Swedish royal anthem. The Maria's avatar joined the other honorees on their promenade down the aisle toward their red velvet seats on the royal blue stage. Viewing the crowded auditorium through her avatar's eyes on her holodesk and via the public stream on her wall monitor, Maria had difficulty distinguishing who was physically present and who was a hologram avatar. Singh had said that Doctors Lamont Mitchell and Kamu Kwame would attend in person. But walking behind Maria's avatar, they resembled their official corporate pictures too closely. Perfectly trimmed beards, one pure white, the other gray. Neat ear-length hair, exactly the color of their beards. And just the right touch of casual smugness. If they're not avatars, she wondered, what does it say about them that they choose to look artificial? Maria knew she was no genius, not like Mitchell and Kwame, whose various cyber-medical innovations had changed the way medicine was practiced. She was in Stockholm, virtually, thanks to a mere intuitive leap prompted by a widow's loneliness, backed up retroactively with a decade of data crunching. Yet Mitchell and Kwame had to share their prize with her, since their newest invention was based on her discovery. Her discovery, damn it. And here on the world stage, WLS would no longer be able to silence her. Her avatar sat motionless on the stage among the 20 other honorees, while Maria was stuck at her desk in her small living room office, doing nothing. Officials droned on, prizes were awarded, and musical interludes played. At this rate, it would be another 40 minutes before her turn. Maria was jolted out of her reveries by a medic alert icon buzzing on her wall screen. It's not my concern. Singh had made that very clear. Your online actions will be recorded for posterity. If you window away from the ceremony for even a moment, the insult will go viral. Whatever the emergency, it would be covered by the substitute nanophysician Singh had assigned to handle today's 39 scheduled patients. Maria had no doubt that the sub would competently follow the routine 10-minute script, check the internal nanites readings, ask the patient standard questions relevant to the symptoms and test results, then sign off on the prescriptions calculated by the WLS AI. But she was worried about Alex Asante and Maddie Khan and Asia Krupp, and one by one, names and faces catapulted through her mind. Maria couldn't help herself. Even now, in the midst of the most momentous event of her life, because they were her life. Maria had been chastised more times than she could count. You're online to check diagnostics and prescribe, not to engage in social diversions or invade individuals' privacy. Still, she had overstepped the bounds only when she felt it was necessary, never going far enough for WLS to carry out their threats of dismissal. Who would fight for her patients if she were sacked? WLS had changed tactics sometime between her paper's publication and Mitchell and Quammen's unveiling of their robotic healing hands. Nowadays, her supervisors seldom threatened dismissal. Instead, they were outwardly respectful and generally overlooked her day-to-day infringements. Mostly, WLS ignored her, including any of her attempts to explain how and why the cyber hands were a travesty. Maria wondered if Mitchell or Quammen had even read her paper, or had an assistant skimmed the abstract and concocted a one-line report focusing on a few keywords. Hands, touch, palpate, heal. What had she expected? Who read anything longer than a wrist pad screen these days? The medic alert kept buzzing. Why was the sub ignoring it? Oh, heck. What harm would it do to open a thumbnail window while the ceremony continued to stream on the main screen and the holodesk? But as soon as she read the scrolling inset message, Joseph Albertson, 908-7845-076-3950, small vessel cerebral aneurysms, Maria went into full VidCon mode. Hello, Joe. How you feeling? Not so good, Doc. My head hurts awful bad. I know, Joe. While I fix it, keep me company. Tell me, who won the Mega Regatta today? They chatted while Maria directed Joe's nanites to repair the vessel walls, remove plaque and inflammation, and administer an analgesic. When she tried to add nanotros to Joe's daily meds to prevent future aneurysms, an unauthorized warning box strobed on her screen, as she had expected. Nanotros was a high-cost antimodulator, considered unsuitable for the 28% of patients who couldn't afford supplemental plans, the so-called lifers, like Joe. Ah, that's better. Thanks, Doc. I'm glad, Joe. I'm prescribing auto-repeat treatments as needed. Bye. Maria wished she didn't have to hang up on him so quickly, but she needed to get back to the ceremony. Dr. Maya Eklund, director of the Royal Swedish Academy of Science, stepped to the podium. One of the great mysteries of modern medicine, she said, has been why otherwise healthy people have been dying at an increasing rate. The whole life system provides a consistent standard of life for everyone, combating the potential for illness and incapacity the moment our internal nanites detect a micro anomaly, often arresting disease or disability before any symptoms manifest. Yet mortality rates continue to rise. The subsistence standard for lifers, Maria snipes silently. You think you're doing them a favor, giving them base level nutrition, housing, and healthcare. But Joe deserves better. Eklund droned on about Maria's meticulous analyses of over 20 million patient records. Then she launched into a gushing description of Mitchell and Quammen's implementation of Maria's discovery with their robotic healing hands. Through the dynamic data exchange between these palpating cyber hands and patients' nanites, Eklund said, we now have the diagnostic missing link that we can expect will reverse mortality rates. Damn, they're cherry-picking, twisting in my discovery, but no more. Tonight, I'll finally tell the world. WLS's accursed cyber hands aren't the answer. Eklund finished with a flourish. Dr. Maria Hilary, please step forward to receive the 2100 Nobel Prize for Medicine from Her Majesty. At the press conference following the ceremony, Maria's avatar sat with Marshall and Quammen on the stage of a historic wood-paneled lecture hall, jam-packed with journalists. Unlike the stage ceremony, the energy in the room was frenetic and nerve-wracking. A Nobel Foundation spokesperson, whose name Maria couldn't remember, introduced them. Doctors Hilary, Marshall, and Quammen will speak briefly. Then they'll field your questions. She turned toward Maria's avatar. Dr. Hilary? Maria took a deep breath to steady her hands on the avatar's controls. It was now or never. Suddenly, the holofeed from her avatar's eyes went black, and the words that came out of her avatar's mouth weren't Maria's uploaded statement. Thank you, Miss Nyman. The avatar nodded to the woman who had introduced it. I'm honored to share a Nobel Prize with Dr. Marshall and Dr. Quammen, whose humanitarian work I have long admired. The avatar had been hijacked. Maria poked icons and buttons, frantically trying to regain control. To no avail. I'm a damn fool letting Singh talk me out of attending in person. Not knowing what to do, Maria kept hitting the same commands over and over. Suddenly, it was done, and Dr. Marshall was introduced. Maria crumbled in defeat, slouching deep into her high-backed desk chair, tears of frustration and anger pouring unchecked. But then she noticed a blinking icon in the corner of her wall monitor. Someone at the press conference had beamed a message to her in the seconds before WLS had hijacked her avatar. Dr. Hilary, I've read your paper, the note said. I'm taking a transatlantic tube to Pennsylvania tonight. Please answer your door tomorrow when I ring. We need to talk. Alex O'Brien, personal assistant to Luna Matheny. Luna Matheny? What could that eccentric gazillionaire possibly want with her? And had O'Brien really read her paper? Or was he one of those crackpots Singh had warned her about? Before slumping off to sleep, Maria Googled Alex O'Brien. Someone of that name was indeed Matheny's personal assistant. Maria studied O'Brien on her security monitor. His face may be craggier and his black hair thinner than his online portrait. But he looked enough like his photo that she opened the door. Dr. Hilary, thank you for seeing me. When he extended his hand, Maria hesitated. She hadn't touched anyone in years, not since Doug's death. O'Brien's handshake was warm, uncalloused, and firm. He wore casual charcoal trousers and a matching turtleneck under a gray tweed blazer. Everything about him radiated wealth and confidence. Thank goodness I changed from shorts to jeans. Heck, I'm formal. I'm wearing shoes. I must admit, Mr. O'Brien, I'm curious. Please come in. He sat in her desk chair while she perched on the sofa. Maria hadn't realized how worn the upholstery had become. She absent-mindedly wiped dust from the Plex coffee table between them. I know you're busy, Dr. Hilary, so I'll get right to the point. Miss Matheny recognizes that WLS is distorting the core of your work. She sent this proposal, which I believe you'll prefer to your current situation. He tapped his wrist pad to beam a presentation to her wall monitor. Maria had had enough corporate speak to last a lifetime. Close that, Mr. O'Brien. Tell me in your own words what you consider the core of my work. Another tap and the monitor blacked. The core? Touch. That the survival of humanity depends on physical connections. And by humanity, she asks, that which makes us more than a collection of isolated individuals consuming, linking, and reposting. To use an old-fashioned word that Miss Matheny favors, our soul. Maria stood abruptly, annoyed that she had been so naive as to listen to a religious kook. I'm sorry, Mr. Bryan. I have no interest in metaphysics. She gestured to the door. My apologies if I insulted you. Miss Matheny sincerely wishes. Why should I believe you? Why would the richest person in the solar system be interested in me? Luna Matheny? He shrugged. Much of her success stems from her delight in pummeling competitors. Yet she dreams of improving the human condition. My guess is that she sees in you the opportunity for both. Luna told me to ask you, if you had a blank check, how would you create the revolution in medicine that she believes she sees in your paper? Maria collapsed onto the creaking sofa. Just then her wrist pad pinged, displaying an automated message. 4 patients in your queue. You're behind schedule. O'Brien pointed at Maria's wrist and at the vidcam above her monitor. You do realize they're watching you. They know I'm here and are probably listening. Maria stared at the cam, then at O'Brien. Luna Matheny? A blank check? Not knowing what to believe, she shook her head. Dr. Hilary, WLS blocked me every other time I tried to reach you. Has any member of the press talked directly with you? Or is WLS purposely keeping you sequestered? Her wrist pad chimed more loudly, as did the speakers on her various screens. Maria shuddered. Sure, she'd been angered by WLS's manipulations. That didn't mean she had any reason to trust O'Brien. What proof do you have that Luna Matheny sent you? Give me a moment. He tapped, then whispered into his wrist pad. I'm with Dr. Hilary. Please tell Luna I need her on the line. Within moments, Matheny's larger-than-life face filled the wall monitor. And it wasn't an avatar. About the same age as Maria, Matheny was barefaced, showing every freckle and blotch. Her signature colored hair was pulled into pigtails that exposed white roots. Maria didn't know whether to be honored that Matheny didn't hide behind a digital mask, or insulted that she didn't consider Maria worth the effort. Dr. Hilary, congratulations on your Nobel Prize. The screen suddenly scrambled into disorganized pixels. Luna, they're blocking your signal, O'Brien said into his wrist pad. Luna's voice came over the speakers. One moment. Her face reappeared, though at low res. Dr. Hilary, we have the luxury of time before WLS hacks us. Tell me, what would it take to introduce true healing hands into modern medicine? Maria scowled, unable to hide her disappointment. You're misreading my work just like WLS. My findings don't relate solely to physical touch, but emotional and social as well. Luna flicked her hand in dismissal. Fine, explain. Why do you think so many otherwise healthy people are dying at an alarming rate? Because they aren't living. They've all the basic necessities, but nothing that gives them reason or meaning. Yes, we need human touch, but we also need a sense of human connection. Alex harumphed. How in heaven's name do you plan to integrate that into an economically feasible health program? By instituting old-fashioned house calls. There aren't enough medical professionals, Alex said. Not professionals, that's the point. Anyone with a solid empathy rating could be trained. Lifers, preferably, because they have the highest mortality rates. Give them a reason to step outside their homes, to look forward to living another day, and their quality of life and longevity will improve, as with those of their patients. They'd use palpating gloves with sensors similar to those in WLS's cyber hands, but because they'd wear the gloves only when communicating with the nanites, the lifers would be a personal connection, flesh to flesh, engaging the patient's psyche, increasing their desire and ability to live longer and more fully, boosting the patient's immunity system. Remembering the sweetness of Doug's caress, she added, they would be touched, and by that touch, healed. Done. We'll do that and more, Luna said. It was happening far too quickly. No, I'll do it, and you'll fund it. No corporation will ever again hijack my life's work. You'll need more than money, Luna countered. You'll need business-savvy people, but you'll be in charge of medical strategy with veto power over... The monitor flickered, then blacked. Luna's staticky voice came through O'Brien's wristpad. WLS is jamming my stream. At the same time, piercing alarms sounded, and various screens displayed strobing red icons. The doorbell rang. The security monitor showed two thick-set men. When they didn't get an immediate response, they banged on the door. Alex spoke into his wristpad. We're trapped, Luna. I'm going to need extraction. He turned to Maria. We can make this happen. Are you coming with me? Maria looked around her apartment, filled with memories of her life with Doug and her many hours of caring for her patients. Then she took down the vid card of Doug cuddling Watson. Let's go, she said. We've got lives to heal. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. That was lovely.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
And Daniel, it happened again. Once
know.
again, we've got a little bit of a thematic thread.
Right. And yet at the same time, really spanning a huge, huge range across the genre. So
Yeah, but I think both of these stories were at their heart about people who just want to be appreciated for their work and to be able to do good work.
yeah,
It's just
as do we all.
very work. So this has been a lovely evening. Thank you both, Sally Wiener Grotta, S.G. Browne. Next week, we have another great lineup. We have Darcy Little Badger and Kath Schaff Stump. Everyone, you can also keep up to date on upcoming authors by checking storyhour2020.com. And you can see programs you may have missed on the Story Hour page at Facebook. So again, thank you both to both of our readers. Thank you to my co-host, Daniel Marcus. And thank you, all of you, for joining us in Spinning the Fictive Dream at Story Hour.
Thanks for inviting us.
It was wonderful sharing with you. Thank you very much.
It is our pleasure.
Good day, everybody.